Hello, my name's Scott Davis and welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for September 7th to September 13th of 2014. And on September 7th, we have the sun. It's in Virgo. It's also in the 64th hexagram, and we can see the stack of lines all the way at the outside of the circle. And the 64 is represented as from bottom to top. It's yin, yang, yin, yang, yin, yang, which is actually the hexagram that I have on the chart here. And of course, the 64th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here is the 64th gate of confusion before completion. Transition like birth requires a determined strength for the passage through. It's located in the head center in an abstract collective energy path in this sensing circuit called the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity that connects to the 47th gate of realizing oppression, a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal or external strength, or both. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing people that I do readings for. That it's actually become my primary tool when I provide readings. And we have the following activated gates on September 7th. We have the sun in the 64. The Earth is in the 63. The North Node is in the 57, with the South Node and retrograde Uranus are both in the 51. And then we have Mercury in the 18th gate, Venus in the 59th gate, and Mars in the 14th gate. Jupiter is in the 33. Saturn is in the first. We've already mentioned Uranus. Neptune retrograde in the 37, and Pluto is retrograde in the 38. Obviously, not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information is going to be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And you can get your human design chart by going to jovianarchive.com and clicking on the button that says get your free rave chart, and then entering your birth information. So basically the neutrino forecast is just a weather report, and no matter what the weather is, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru Hu said, whatever the weather's going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And the week begins with no channel definitions due to the transit field. We're going to be looking at the sun's Ravi Ching line values daily, because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said in Living with the Program, the lines of the day, when talking about these daily shifts of line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. Now, obviously, if your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always notice how the program's affecting others in your environment. So let's get started. On September 3rd, it begins with the sun in the fourth line. So up here in the line of the opportunist of the 64th hexagram, which is described as conviction, exalted, symbolized by its phases. The moon is assured of transition, convinced by its very process that it will triumph. The assuredness that confusion is a process that results in realization. Detrimented where force and energy alone cannot overcome doubt. Where the confusion is so energized, assuredness brings no relief. And fourth line days, the opportunist line, it has an outward perspective. It's about interacting with the other. So we're looking at this being, and by the other, it's the other that you know well is the fourth line energy for friendship or companionship or networking or any kind of social interaction. The Then later on the 7th, the sun moves into the 5th line. So up here, the line of the heretic, and still in the 64th hexagram. The shift happens at 4:06 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and all the times I'm going to give you in this report are going to be Eastern Daylight Time, so you want to convert that to your local time zone. And the sun in the 64th hexagram 5th line is described as promise, exalted. The values promised in any new order are demonstrated through the harmonic interactions with others. This strengthens the justification for struggle. Confusion over which values and relationships can bring harmony. Detrimented, a tendency in trying to justify the struggle by focusing exclusively on the failure of the old order that cannot demonstrate the quality of the new. Focusing on the past confusions about values and relationships. And 5th line days, again, we're dealing with the heretics, so there's suspicion, but also universalization, where things can spread very rapidly, like a Facebook post or YouTube video that goes viral. And with the suspicion, we've also got this quality of projection where people get projected onto, and the projection is always positive followed by negative. The positive being, they could do it, they'd be great at it. And then if they don't do it, can't do it for any reason, it doesn't get done, the expectation is not met, then comes the punishment with the negative projection. Some say that this is about paranoia, but it's not paranoia if they're really out to get you. Anyway, other things that we see with the 5th line, seduction is a 5th line day. Basically, those are energies that you might see in your environment while the sun is traveling through a 5th line of any hexagram. On the 8th, the sun then moves up into the 6th line. It's up in the role model line of the 64th hexagram, the shift being at 3:18 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 64-6 is victory, exalted, the mental assuredness that knew that victory was inevitable. The mental gift of enjoying the confusion and its diversity of data. Detrimented, like the Trojan horse, it can be dangerous to get carried away in celebration, lest one loses vigilance and perspective. And with diversity of data, it's easy to lose perspective. 6 line days, Ra talks about not to get stuck with your head in the clouds, because, here we are, the line of the role model, we're on the roof of the hexagram. The 6th line is looking beyond what comes next. When we're on the roof of the house, we're not looking at the house we're sitting on, we're looking at everything else in the neighborhood. And so this can sort of, bring this focus that's not necessarily on what's immediately around us. Because people are maybe not looking at their immediate environment, there are certain dangers that we see along with 3rd line days of, not seeing something coming, not seeing a car coming, not seeing a bill coming that we hadn't prepared for or whatever. And then also on the 8th, Mercury moves from the 18th hexagram and gate to the 48. And Mercury is the messenger of the gods in mythology. So this is about communication, expansion of human consciousness through communication. When I heard Ra talking about it, he really goes into that. It's not just his words, but also through music. So what do we need to communicate in life? We communicate the message of our design Mercury through the medium of our personality Mercury. And what gets communicated by Mercury in the 48th gate? Well, it's depth that comes from understanding the patterns that resulted from the judgmental process. This is the gate of depth, the well, the necessary and qualitative foundation that is a prerequisite to establish the common good. And Mercury is direct, so we start out in the first line of the 48, which is insignificance, exalted and instinctive recognition of what is practical and deserves attention, a taste for recognizing what is practical and deserves attention, detrimented, an ego tendency to apply energy to trivial considerations, a taste for trivia. And then on the 9th, the sun moves from the 64th hexagram and gate to the 47. And of course, the Earth moves at the same time, and it's moving to the 22. Get a little bigger. So the Earth's in the 22nd gate of openness, grace, a quality of behavior best suited for handling mundane and trivial situations. The shift happens at 2:28 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 47th gate of realizing oppression, a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength, or both. The sun is in the first line, so it's in the line of the investigator, of taking stock, exalted, the ability in times of hardship to concentrating on eradicating the negative factors that have led to oppression, realizing that negative thoughts have led to have to be eradicated. Detrimented, the delusion of seeing oppression as exclusively external phenomena with disastrous results, the sense that the world is against you. And so we've moved into a new hexagram, and so now we're in the first line. We're down here in the lower trigram, as we've talked about before. The first and second and third lines are really more inward in their perspective, absorbed in their own process. The theme of the first line of the investigator is an anxiety or a fear that needs to be researched. That the way to alleviate that anxiety is to look into it, to study, to research things, deal with things that you don't know, and try to understand them, or things that you can't make sense of, or just simply don't understand. So, and then on the 10th, the sun moves into the second line of the 47. And the shift happens at 1:38 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 47-2 is described as ambition, exalted, the ambition to and drive to overcome a personal oppression in order to achieve security, realizing that to be busy is mentally healthy. Detrimented and indecisiveness in times of personal oppression, whether to apply intelligence to recovery or accept the weight to take advantage of other prevailing conditions that may only be temporary. The inability to sense when and which activity is healthy. And second line days, okay, now we're in the line of the hermit, and when we think about the second line, it's waiting for something. It's waiting to be called. It's waiting because it has natural talents that people are looking for. So this is a time when people are more, again, internal in their focus, want to be in their hermitage, stay home. So maybe not the best day to schedule a social occasion. And then also on the 10th, Venus, it moves from the 59th hexagram to the 40. So we've been seeing this pattern lately of as we've had Mercury and then the Sun, and then and now Venus coming through into the 40. And hooking up with Neptune in the 37, giving us the channel of community. So in human design, Venus is very powerful. It's deeply misunderstood according to Ra. It's about morality and natural law in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us. And what disturbs you on a moral level? Well, Ra talks about that your design and personality Venuses tell you about a moral dilemma that you're going to work with in your life. And that if you don't work with moral clarity, that Venus can be unkind in its retribution. Venus is in the 40th gate of aloneness, deliverance, the point of transition between struggle and liberation. Again, and Venus is direct, so we're in the first line of the 40th hexagram, which is recuperation, exalted, the ability to relax and enjoy the fruits of one's behavior, the ego strength to enjoy being alone. Detrimented, the ego uncomfortable with being alone too long. With Venus in the 40th gate and Neptune in the 37th, we have the channel of community until September 14th. This definition brings the energy where people will wonder where they belong in the scheme of things and then try to live that out. It's a time of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community. Fairness becomes more important under the influence of the channel of community. Balance becomes important in all aspects of life. People will explore how they fit into their community and on a mystical level where they fit into the universe and what their true purpose is. On the 11th, the sun moves into the third line. So again, of the 47. This shift happens at 12:47 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is a self-oppression, exalted, the conscious and well-intentioned being whose natural right action will eventually come to see the unfoundedness of its oppression. The eventual realization that one is really okay. Detrimented, a self-oppression so highly energized that it may prove irreversible and destructive. Extreme difficulty in realizing one's self-worth. And third line days, so this is the martyr line. Be careful on the roads, be careful of things in your environment, swinging doors, swinging elbows. It's a day where we might have bonds made and broken. It's a trial and error process, and basically a system of discovery that comes from figuring out what doesn't work. And third line days, things can bump into you. It's a material plane day. But you have to be careful because things can go wrong, but those things that do go wrong are there to lead us to discovery. On the 12th, the sun then moves into the fourth line. So we're moving up into the upper trigram. And the fourth line of the 47th hexagram, the shift happening at 11:55 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it's described as a repression, the constant the constraints of external oppression, exalted, the strength of identity that even in times of most powerful oppression can maintain its resources and to some extent ensure the survival of the benefit of others, a sense of identity that can be maintained despite external conditioning. Detrimented, when robbed of its light, the moon is lost in darkness, barely able to nourish itself, let alone others. The identity overwhelmed by external conditioning. And fourth line days, this is where we're shifting from the lower trigram to the upper trigram. We're shifting from an inward perspective to an outward perspective. The themes of friendship, of companionship, networking. Fourth line days, again, great for social interaction. People are more open to networking and being friendly and being social. And also on the 12th, Mercury moves from the 48th gate into the 57, where it's joining the North Node, and Saturn moves from the first up into the 47. Let's find it. I'm sorry, not 47, 43rd gate. And I made that mistake last week with Mars. It's the 43rd gate. Saturn moves from the first gate to the 43rd gate. Let's talk about Mercury first. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. We talked about this. We talked about it's about communication. And in the 57th gate, what might be communicated? Well, this is probably going to we're probably going to hear communication about intuitive insight that can penetrate to the core of the now. And this is the gate of intuitive insight, the gentle, the extraordinary power of clarity. And Mercury in the 57-1 is confusion, exalted, the gift of penetrating to the inner meaning that ensures timely action. The possibility of the intuition penetrating to the inner meaning. Detrimented, where feelings are no substitute for clarity and can lead to indecision. The possibility that confusion will overpower the intuition. And then Saturn, moving from the 1st up to the 43rd. It's interesting. Ra describes Saturn as yin in yang clothing. Saturn is the judge. This is a place of vulnerability where we deal with the consequences of our actions. And Saturn in the 43rd gate of insight, breakthrough. In order for achievement to be maintained, a new order must be fairly established. It also has a tendency to blurt out information. So when it's specifically not being invited, so not only are we more likely to come off as freaks from sharing our genius thinking, when we're not asked for it, we're also likely to be more punished for it because we've got Saturn in this gate. It's direct, so we're talking about the first line of patience, exalted, the recognition that new forms cannot be established until resistance has been eliminated, the depth necessary to bring into form an individual insight, detrimented, and impatience to enjoy the sweets of accomplishment that leaves a sour taste in the mouth, delight in insight, but the lack of depth to establish it. So strategy and authority really are the best way to avoid having to pay the Saturnian price, particularly in this one of blurting out genius thoughts. So you might want to keep that in mind while we have Saturn in the 43. On the 13th, the Sun moves into the 5th line of the 57. I'm sorry, of the 47. Boy. Anyway, 5th line of the 47. The shift happening at 11:03 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The Sun in the 47.5 is described as the saint. This position has special significance with no planet detrimented, exalted, the gift in time of oppression to maintain without hypocrisy a harmonic relationship with one's oppressors while providing the succor to the oppressed, realizing that its most exalted, realization at its most exalted, acceptance of the weight of the abstract process and the grace that naturally flows. No polarity, detriment in no planets in detriment. So 5th line days are heretical. It's a day of suspicion. We talked about it, universalization. Again, it's if the 5th line energy is really about projection and having influence over those that you don't know well. And also on the 13th, Mars moves. And Mars is moving from the 14th gate. Let's see what we got to fill this in. To the 34. That'll work for now. Which then gives us this defined sacral center and defined splenic center. And Mars is in the gate of power. the power of the great. The power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. And Mars is exalted in the second and fifth lines of the 34th hexagram and detrimented in the fourth line. Mars is direct, so we're in the first line. As we enter the hexagram, the first line is the bully, the indiscriminate use of power, exalted, the less negative, the resort to power as a manifestation of frustration, the energy to display power as a response to frustration, detrimented, the comeuppance that is the inevitable destiny of the bully, the ever-present risk of retaliation to power displays. And Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. And Mars represents the warrior archetype. By following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality Marses from immaturity to wisdom. And with Mars moving into the 34th gate on the 13th, and Mercury and the North Node in the 57, we get the channel of power, which is the design of the archetype, which will be with us until September 22nd. And this channel brings an attunement to the body to have an acute early warning system to anything in the immediate environment. This increases our intuitive awareness through the power of sacral response. This may affect folks to feel on guard and alert to any dangers in our environment. This is an animal instinct to engage in battle or jump out of the way in a split-second response from our attunement to sound and vibration. People are going to be more in tune with what's being said and from the tone of voice of the speaker rather than the words spoken. Sometimes this is experienced as a coolness by others. But this individual channel of survival represents the archetype of what it is to be human. The defined splenic center brings intuition and well-being. Ra warned that non-splenic people may let go of something that is good for them during a transit defining the splenic center. And of course, the sacral definition affects non-generators types in feeling busy and having an endurance for work. So, obviously this is conditioning energy. You really want to just stick with your strategy and authority and not get caught up in this the conditioning that this brings. But it's always interesting just to watch the movie, watch what's going on in your environment. Who are the players and how are they being affected by these transits. The week continues moving through the hexagrams of the 40, the 64, the 47, and next week we'll get to the sun in the 6, which are the gates that are associated with the Harmonia Godhead, the Greek goddess of harmony and concord, which was covered in last week's offering. No matter what energies are conditioning you during the week, remember this experience is about being a passenger, riding in the vehicle driven by the magnetic monopole. So enjoy the scenery. Let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing, no matter what dramas beckon to distract us. I believe that we're all here giving the performance of our lifetime on the world stage. Just take some time out to observe the play, observe your movie, as well as act your part. Remember, you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. And you can, so anyway, thanks for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be on for September 14th of 2014. Should be available on the 13th, when we're going to continue to look at the influences of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, and YouTube. There's New World Birth presences on all those sites. I encourage you to share this information as videos or text as widely as you choose. I'll be discussing the transits of October 2014 and providing some short human design readings to the participants of the Earth Needs Rebels show on Truth Frequency Radio on Wednesday, October 1st. The show starts at 1 o'clock p.m. I come on 1:30, again, Eastern Daylight Time, and it goes to 3. And you can contact them through the chat space of the Earth Needs Rebels show on Truth Frequency Radio, their website, or you can personal message Katie and send her your phone number, and they'll be happy to call you for free anywhere on the planet if you want to come on the show live. I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or wish to schedule a reading. If you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me, because I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. I think the best way to make a donation is get a reading. And these readings tend to be pretty epic. They usually go at least an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. Hey, I'm a projector. Sometimes I don't know when enough is enough, and they go for 4 hours. But they're just jam-packed with important information to help you navigate what's going on in the world and how it's affecting you particularly. So anyway, as always, I am very, very blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for all these different types of ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. And I look forward to connecting with you in the next video, or on the radio show, or in a reading, which would be fantastic. Anyway, thanks for everything. All my best to everybody.